let's get this over with. This is a Madea Halloween, and I got Belle in my lap. If you hear any noise going on downstairs, it's because I have my stepdad working on the basement. He's doing some reflooring and stuff. I hope that doesn't interfere with my talking, but then again, it is what it is. I have my little proof right here. Here you go. Whoop, Bella, please. She's very timid of the noise, so that's why she's like this. It's okay. It's okay, girl. It's okay. You want to talk about this movie with me? Because I really don't want to. I like it better when someone is talking to me, but no. Ew. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So my mother had a pretty long week and a long month, and I was thinking of the whole idea, why don't I just treat her out to the movies, do something that she might like, and this is the perfect time to do this. I figured, might as well do something she wants. Okay, what's out? Madea Halloween. She's in the Tyler Perry. Why not? She had a good time seeing it. And I only laughed at, 2 jokes. So in terms of reviews, it was between that and the new Rocky Horror Picture Show remake, but I didn't really... I kind of phased out of the Rocky Horror a little too much. This is one I sat through from beginning to end and had to pay attention to, so clearly you can kind of see which one I ended up going with anyway. And I don't know whether I regret it or really regret having this dog on me. I'm gonna come out and say this right first off and foremost, just to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not a big fan of Tyler Perry. I'm not a huge fan of his films in general. When he's an actor, he's fine. When he does acting, he's legitimately fine. Yes, you agree with me. I do appreciate that. When he's an actor, he's okay. I've seen him in Gone Girl. I've seen him in Alex Cross. I think he's really decent as an actor, but when he's doing his own material, it just doesn't work for me. His dramas feel like melodramatic, unintentional comedies, and his comedies feel like melodramatic dramas, because they're all centered on that one theme. A good example is Madea Goes to Jail. You think it's going to be about Madea going to jail and showing prison from her side of things, and they do, but they don't show much of it. And instead, it's about this, if I remember correctly, this prostitute that's trying to get a second chance at life, and then she goes to jail, and then this person that really loves her instead of his own wife decides to go after her because she has connections or something. These are technically the kind of movies they are. And don't get me wrong, I have seen a good bulk of his movies, even the Madea ones. Medea's Family Reunion, Madea Goes to Jail, Witness Protection, then there's Good Deeds, Single Wives Clubs, Medea's Big Happy Family. So I really already know a good sense of the writing style and the style of comedy he goes for. They seem to be very thematic around family and certain issues here and there within. And that's fine. If you want to do those kinds of movies, okay, but I really don't think they're entertaining the way they're done. And that goes with Boo, a Madea Halloween. The whole movie is about this character that Tyler Perry also plays, named Brian Simmons, who can't control his daughter, and she plans to go out to a fraternity party. And when he finds out, he decides to have Madea come over and watch her to make sure she doesn't sneak out of the house. She brings along a couple of friends, and that's pretty much the plot of the movie in a nutshell, because from there, it meanders so much into these different subplots. You start to wonder how it went from point A to point B to point C, because it takes these so many different turns that there really is no focal point. Like, first it's on Halloween, then it becomes a movie about parenting, what qualifies as good parenting and bad parenting. We'll get to that in a second. Then it's trying to be just like Neighbors, where it's showing these fraternity boys that just want to have a big party, but they want to stick by their morals and they don't want to overdo things in every way, and we'll get to that as well. And then it becomes a prank war, and then at the very tail end, for the last 5 minutes, it becomes a prison movie. It's all over the map. It's legitimately all over the map. So let's start with one of the biggest problems of this movie that really gets under my skin, and that's the whole parenting aspect. The character Brian has this daughter who's going through the basic teenage years, getting boys and partying, and again, she wants to go to this party, and there's this boy that's kind of eyeing her in the fraternity, and that gives him a bit of a concern, and they set up this whole aspect that he's so dormant that he doesn't know how to control his own daughter and stuff, and then later there's this whole twist that he's been so quiet and so very non-demanding in his role as a father that he's really not doing his parenting skills very well. He comes off as being too soft. And even for a character at that age, he should at least understand the aspects of what his teenage daughter is going through. And there's this whole thing where, he has to go to a business meeting apparently, and they don't address how serious it is. We don't know if it's a visitation from anyone. It's just, bing, business meeting. Gotta have someone to watch my daughter while I'm away. I know, crazy granny. That'll work. And even then, it makes the Brian character not only interesting, but also a little shameful. Because you think, for someone that's seen his daughter grow up, you'd think that he would at least have some source of knowledge onto what is going on with her, and the life, and her life, and everything in general. And when it boils down to that one scene in the ending where the daughter's like, you've been so soft and dormant that you let people walk over you and stuff. And that's really the biggest problem. He's kind of a wimp. There's even this whole sequence where him, Madea, her two sisters, Aunt Bam. I think the aunt's sister. No, I think it's a friend actually. It's Aunt Bam, and I forgot the other aunt's name. I think it's a friend, and you have her brother Joe there. We're all going back and forth about different parenting methods and what it was like back then and all that. And it goes in this very long, unneeded comedic set piece. Again, within this living room. It's not in the kitchen. They're not moving around and getting up. No, they're all sitting down and bantering on and on and on about parenting methods and how it was different back then. And this whole idea, which I understand, it's trying to say that the parenting methods of today are not as rash or harsh or impactful as today, which is more soft and, young lady, blah, 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 and, back then it's more like, young lady, slap, slap, slap. Like, they're going on about how it's more effective to literally beat it into the kid's head, discipline the kid with physical matter. And they even go on at one point to mention that at one point, Brian's character as a kid was actually chucked off a roof. I don't know who you are, but that's not funny. Like, maybe in an Addams Family kind of way if Wednesday was doing that Pugsley, because there's a sibling rivalry going on kind of thing, but no. If it was a parent chucking their kid off the roof, again, they talk about it, they don't show it, but they go into detail, I chucked you off the roof and you landed on your pencil on the ground. No, just, no, I get the whole aspect. There's a certain difference between the right way to discipline a kid and the wrong way to discipline a kid. And it's set up within that parlor so much that when the payoff comes later on, where they show the right way to do it, it really loses a lot of luster when you've sat through discussions about slapping kids on the rear and how things are different from back then to today and all that sort of stuff. And when you get to that cheesy moment where it's like, you should understand it, I'm the father in the big role, it feels very manipulative and calculated in a sense. Because you could literally see it coming a mile away, especially knowing that the Brian character doesn't really go through that big of a change. He just goes to this meeting, he comes back, they berate him, and then finally, for no reason, because of the motivation of the daughter, he finally snaps and realizes, yeah, I should do my duty as a father. And that should come as a good moment, but it feels so forced after a long sequence in this living room talking about how to discipline a kid in their own way, and it goes on for so long. I remember long stretches of silence in that theater, and the only time they laughed was when Uncle Joe said something ridiculous, funny, or perverted. And that's really what these characters feel like to me. They're these one-note archetypes that are just there to say this weird banter, argumental jargon that's more suited for a long church sermon, not a comedy. Okay, so second problem, we have the fraternity brothers. They're obviously trying to be like Animal House. They're all woo party, blah blah blah, and they're saying all that modern jargon and stuff. And then finally, their senses snap to, well, they don't even drink any booze or kind of loud. You don't see any glass bottles pressing their lips, which is kind of bold for Tyler Perry to litter like bottles here and there. They snap to their senses without giving too much away when one of the characters goes there and they find out that she's underage, and they immediately start panicking like an atom bomb just dropped. So you spend a good majority with these annoying these annoying college kids. They're all about party, blah 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 blah, and then they're trying to be the responsible ones. That's, I want to say it can be done in a clever way, like maybe Animal House. Animal House did that a little better because at least they were trying to be students in their right, but at the same time they had their own means of freedom and what they could do and what they want, despite the dean being over them and everything. And it works for that movie because they're trying to be the top of their game, and yet all they know is really slobbery. And they do it in such a high-class art that it's so funny to see these underdogs give it their all when they're trying to take an exam or defend themselves. Here, these college kids are so one-note that when they try to give them some depth of character, in one moment, when they realize they're doing something wrong, it comes off as awkward than actually funny. Because you spend with them a whole time where you can tell that their mind is on booze and sex, and yet when reality kicks in, it feels so weird and sudden of a turn. Because you wouldn't think that these kind of characters would have that kind of mindset. It just comes off very strange. The other problem with this film is that at one point it turns into this weird haunted house prank war kind of thing. Again, without spoiling too much, if you've seen the trailers, you might recall scenes of Madea punching clowns, going up against zombies, and at one point dealing with ghosts in the house. Yeah, that's just a big, elaborate prank. I read in an interview that Tyler Perry said he's not into ghosts and witches and all that kind of stuff, which is a really big shame because it could have been something interesting. For something called Boo, a Madea Halloween, you kind of expect this earned, scared, stupid kind of thing, like maybe a curse on the town or something ridiculous. And they don't go that route. Instead, I think Tyler Perry really plays it way too safe in this film. They could have done like a parody of Paranorman with Madea and it would have been fine. Like her just going up against zombies, or maybe it's The Walking... Oh yeah, Tyler Perry's not... Oh no, he likes... I read up he kind of likes the show The Walking Dead, even let the crew film on a bit of a studio site, but he doesn't like seeing him, which is, kind of funny in a sense. But again, it's a shame because there are aspects where a writer needs to go outside of his comfort zone to expand upon these ideas and different things. There's a point in time where a writer can get so formulaic and repetitive with so much that he's written. William Shakespeare, for example, he's written so many comedies in his time that if you performed them at the same time, you would notice certain character tropes, certain storylines that are very similar with each other. Because a writer will say, okay, I like this idea from that one, how can I expand upon this in the next genre piece that I'm going to do? And that's the same thing with Tyler Perry right here. He really seems to focus more on morality values and what's being going on in the real world, which is fine. But I don't think it's done interestingly enough. I think after the set of Madea films we had, where it feels so preachy, that we should have something at least out of the box and out of the norm. The closest thing was Witness Protection, but even that went nowhere. I guess that was supposed to be a comment on poverty in today's world, but it just really backfired on itself. Like the whole ghost parody with Whoopi Goldberg getting the finances, they did that in Witness Protection. And then, of course, Doris Roberts being a little racist in a couple of spots. I'm not going to go into much detail because we're talking about Madea Halloween. But no, apparently these fraternity boys decide to pull a prank on Madea after something happens. And again, I'm not going to give away too much. But apparently they go really all out with these pranks. And you kind of question how they're able to do this. Like, there's this scene where the faucet in the bathroom goes on and off, and it fogs up the mirror, and it magically writes, "Get your fat ass out of the house or die." And then which is really unbelievable. How can you make something like that happen? And supposedly they said up earlier that one of the new college kids can actually do like technological kind of stuff, which some of that I can kind of buy. Like one scene where they hack into the television and play like creepy messages and stuff, and when they control the electronic lights and all that sort of thing. But unless you're God, how can you control the plumbing in a house electronically? Like, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but the way they showed in the movie, especially to the point where you can, digitally write on the mirror, just, my goodness. Okay. And then they do the whole zombie thing, which lasts for about, 2 or 3 minutes of the movie. And then in the form of exposition, one of the makeup kids was great at Tom Savini stylized kind of makeup, and so he's able to turn people into monsters and stuff. This movie kind of would have been more interesting if they had a Madea version of the Monster Squad at the very least, but Tyler Perry, don't do monsters. It just goes on, and this prank thing goes on for so long. It trails into a really unnecessary final 15 minutes, which I'm not even going to give away, which really heads straight into a whole different kind of movie. It just feels so unnecessary and lengthy with the way they play it out. And I guess the message of that aspect is, there's a certain limit to playing jokes and all that sort of such. But again, mixed in with the whole, you gotta know your limits when it comes to being a parent, when to rightfully discipline your child, when to not rightfully discipline your child. It starts to send a little bit of a mixed message when you have a bunch of characters who are really irresponsible with each other. And that leads into the next problem I had with the movie. The characters. Hold that thought. Every character in this movie is either irritating, annoying, or really underwhelming. I never felt that character arc with Brian and his will to finally overcome the idea of, okay, I'm a father to this kid, and I guess I gotta do my duty, or otherwise I'm gonna lose what I have. It doesn't feel there, or even developed. Like, the essence of it is there, but it just doesn't feel well developed. Because then you have the whole focus of the film being on Madea and this whole other crew who are just there to banter and shout catchphrases and just be themselves. Madea, I never found that interesting as a character to begin with. She's the typical crabby, crazy grandma that, again, spouts catchphrases and is 100% crabby and cynical from the inside out. And this is a problem I have with most of the movies she's in. There will come a moment when she says something very meaningful, very respectful, that it really becomes a hypocrite against the character when she goes against it into the last 10 or 15 minutes into the movie. And I can't even begin to fathom the many times this has happened. Like Medea Christmas, for example, when she finally tells them the aspect of family, blah blah blah, and then the next thing you know, she's like, "Go on and free trash out on here," blah blah blah. And they do that too. They do that too. She goes from saying, we got to start beating our kids again, or otherwise they're not gonna get any respect and all. And then near the tail end of the movie, she mentions the importance of family and everything like that. It sounds very weird and hypocritical coming out of a character that is so bitter and cynical as Scrooge. Because if we are supposed to even believe this immediate change in the character's heart, there has to be an immediate change in this character, otherwise it's going to come out weird and awkward. And I'm not saying this is a bad idea explaining it the way she does, but it really goes against what she set up to do. Just be this crazy grandmother that runs around, that apparently has a warrant on her for all the things she's done. Again, she showed a lot of that and goes to jail. Killing a car with a forklift. Then you have Uncle Joe, who's pretty much the crazed sex grandfather that's bigoted and just is very selfish. You have Aunt Bam, who has this running gag over the fact that she can smoke marijuana legally because apparently she has a special card that gives her the ability. Ha! You can't catch me, coppers! And they do this joke so much throughout the whole movie. It becomes a drinking game. Like when Madea says something completely baffling and absolutely shocking, take a shot. If Aunt Bam mentions that she can legally smoke marijuana, take a shot. Haiti, that's her name, Haiti, I forgot. Whenever their friend Haiti mispronounces her words, or when she starts talking that annoying Eddie Deason kind of voice, take a shot. She's the comic relief that's very timid and scared and all about morals and doesn't want to be harsh, and it's like, they're so... They talk in an annoying way, and they speak in an annoying way, and the mindset of these characters are so irritating that it becomes very daunting to listen to for my mind as they keep going on and on and on and on about certain things, and let it end. Let it end. Like, good grief. You'd expect more out of this, like a crazy Gremlins kind of movie, but again, Tyler Perry don't touch that. Tyler Perry don't do that. Tyler Perry is all about morals and value, and it's so disappointing. There isn't much to the filming department. I know he did stage work before doing movies, and it still shows. We don't get to see more of the house outside of like 3 or 4 bedrooms, the house they're staying at to watch over. We don't see much of that outside of them remaining in this living room for so damn long. It's like, can you go to the kitchen or something? You don't need to stay in this living room for that majority of the movie. And apparently the house looks like the Myers house from Halloween 5. Brad Jones is right on that one. Come to think of it, their review is actually more entertaining than the film, and even that's 88 minutes long. Shorter than the movie, but the way they talk about it is actually kind of interesting, and oh my goodness. Man. If you want to talk about today's teenagers, fine, but unless your name is not John Hughes, you're really going to have a difficult time showing both sides of the coin, unless you're going to have a one-sided conversation with a very weird tick that realizes, oh yeah, we should be these kind of characters now because we're doing something wrong, apparently. I can't remember a single character I liked in this movie. I can't remember... Well, no, actually, the technicals of this film actually weren't too bad, I admit. There are some... It definitely shows in these movies. In this one, you can actually see, like, Madea and Brian in one shot. I guess thanks to some special effect or some really good double work, because there were points where I did look like a certain matting kind of line to show, because there's three characters played by Tyler Perry: Uncle Joe, Madea, and Brian Simmons. So when they had this one shot of them standing in a frame, I kept looking for like the special effect line with the little image blur, and there wasn't any. I actually applaud them in the technical department. It's clear that they're improving that field, but if you want to do a funny movie, you gotta have a good story that goes with it, characters that mean well, even if they're not great characters. You gotta do something that means well with them. A running joke with Madea, who claims that she keeps doing this whole weird running gag where she used to be a weird stripper, and I guess that kind of pays off at the fraternity scene where she tricks all the college kids into feeling her boobs, which was weird and gross. Granted, it's PG-13, so you don't see anything, which is a good thing, but at the same time, when you hear them describe the texture and everything, it gets... Ugh, ugh. To be fair, there are two jokes I did laugh at. Well, that I found were kind of actually funny in their own right. One is in the beginning where Aunt Bam has the munchies and she finds a secret way to steal kids' candy that led to a couple of funny gags here and there. And there's one during one of the undaunting parlor scenes where they talk about prostates for some weird reason, and then Uncle Joe looks over to Madea, and this is the funniest line in the whole movie, I admit, just from the way it's delivered. He looks over at her, square in the eye, and says, in this kind of voice, "You know you got a prostate." That was actually kind of funny. That was actually really off guard and pretty good. And then they have to ruin that joke later on when Madea is exploring up in the attic and Uncle Joe is laying on the couch, supposedly slapping the salami, because, you know, he's the perverted grandfather. And at one point, Madea goes up and he looks over to the two girls and says, "Well, if she ever goes, there's one thing you should know. That there is a dude. No, that there is a man." Like, thank you for ruining the previous joke. Just... If you're a fan of these movies, good for you. I'm glad you find something interesting, wholesome, and funny in these. But I wouldn't really take that word for it either, because I looked on a couple of message boards here and there, and there are some Madea fans that found themselves really disappointed with this film, and I'm actually kind of surprised, because there's this huge fan base for this character. Hell, Tyler Perry did a sketch with Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon was Donald Trump doing this survey with Madea, and it has ranked up over 7 million views. Like, with that kind of staying power, it really shows how lasting this character is, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get some more Madea movies in the future from the looks of it. I wouldn't be surprised if we get Madea in space, as long as they don't do any weird family moral message whatchamacallit bar. I'll be fine. I just don't like spotlighting Tyler Perry because there's not a lot to talk about. It's legitimately the same film. He tries to have a good moral with his movie, but the support that goes into it is so convoluted and hypocritical that it really sends out a very mixed message with his films. Single Wives Club, for example, or is it called First Wives Club? No, Temptation, that's what it was, Temptation, where apparently all women that sleep with people who are not their husbands are evil and they should be cursed with the AIDS virus. Like, that kind of thing. It's so absurd that you laugh at it, but then you realize, wait a minute, this shouldn't be like that. If you're gonna address something this big, if you're gonna address such a hot topic issue, it should be done in a more reasonable manner. Like, you're talented, yeah, you're talented, but if you're not capable in bringing over this into in this kind of material into your film, you're not capable of talking about anything else. I'm not even kidding here. I read in an interview that he's contemplating about making his next Madea movie about police brutality. I wish I was making that up. There is seriously an article, an interview online, article and interview, pizza and pasta all in one row. No, there's an article with an interview with him that mentions that he's thinking about doing the next Madea movie, or possibly a future Madea movie, where he talks about police brutality. I have no words. I have no words. I think that that explains itself in a nutshell. I just on the bright side, my mother liked it. She thought it was funny. I heard her crackling and laughing a couple of times. It was Ghostbusters all over again. You know, she enjoyed it, and I just sort of sat back like this, just, you know, Mr. Burns pose, just throughout the whole movie. I was like this, literally, just like this, just. And then by the time the end credits rolled, my hands were so numb that I had to just extend and flex them a bit to make sure that they were working, so I could type up the little review blog. She liked it. That's really all that matters. I didn't like it. So what? It's my opinion. It's a movie that I disagreed with. It's really all it is. I'm not recommending this movie at all. Not even if it comes out on home video. It's already gained back its $20 million budget at the box office. I'm not surprised. If you like these movies, fine. Just fine. Just don't put me into it. There's better things out there that I can enjoy. The holiday season's coming up, and I can't wait for a lot of things like Doctor Strange, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And then finally in January we're getting, what was it, The Founder, I think it's called? It has Michael Keaton in it. It's supposed to be the true story of how McDonald's was turned to a franchise. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up. It's just this movie. No. No, nay, never, I say thee, nay. Just... No. Just no. No. At least it was Bargain Tuesday. I didn't have to pay full price, because if I paid full price, that'd be a whole lot scarier. And you know what else was actually kind of interesting? The parody posters they did of Halloween and The Exorcist. Those were a whole lot more fun than this piece of... Happy Halloween. I'm gonna go brush my teeth. Blech.